If you have these coins, or if someone in your family has them, your life could change today. Watch this video all the way to the end, because what I am going to share with you in the next few minutes could genuinely change your life forever. Welcome back to Expensive Coins History Channel. If you are new here, this is the place where we uncover the hidden fortunes that have been sitting in plain sight for decades. Fortunes that most people walk right past without ever knowing what they had in their hands. Today we are talking about two very specific coins from the United Kingdom. Two coins that were minted in Britain during a time of great economic and political change. Two coins that carry a story so powerful, so layered with history, and so full of surprising twists that once you hear it, you will never look at old coins the same way again. These two coins are the British New Pence 2 pence from 1979 and the British New Pence 2 pence from 1980. They look simple. They are copper in color, small and round, and they carry the image of the Prince of Wales' feathers on one side and the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the other. To most people, they are just old pennies. To most people, they are worth 2 pence, which is almost nothing. But to the world of serious coin collecting, to the numismatists, to the auction houses, to the private collectors who have spent their lives studying and hunting rare coins, these two small pieces of metal represent something extraordinary. They represent rarity, history, era, and value that most people cannot even imagine. Let us start from the very beginning. Because to understand why these coins are worth what they are worth, you need to understand the world they came from. You need to feel the era. You need to walk back in time to Britain in the late 1970s and early 1980s and understand what was happening, what was changing, and why the Royal Mint made decisions that would accidentally, or perhaps in some cases deliberately, create some of the rarest coins in modern British history. Britain in the late 1970s was a country going through enormous transformation. The economy was difficult. Inflation was high. There were strikes and political tensions. The government was changing, society was shifting, and the currency itself was still settling into the new decimal system that had been introduced in 1971. Before decimalization, Britain had a currency system that had been in place for centuries, with pounds, shillings, and pence in a complex arrangement that required real mathematical skill to use every day. Then, in 1971, the country switched to a decimal system, 100 the new pence to the pound, clean and simple. And the coins that came out of that era were stamped with the words "New Pence" to help people understand the new system. By the late 1970s, the word "new" on these coins was starting to feel out of place. The decimal system was no longer new. It had been in place for nearly a decade. People were used to it. The coins did not need to say "New Pence" anymore. The Royal Mint knew this. There were discussions about changing the inscription. And this is exactly where the story of our two coins begins to get interesting. This is where history stepped in and created something rare. This is where the value was born. The 1979 British New Pence 2 pence was among the last coins to carry that New Pence inscription in regular circulation. The Royal Mint was in a transitional period, deciding when and how to update the wording. Coins from this era are interesting on their own, but certain versions of these coins are extraordinary. There were proof sets, special collector editions, coins that were made not for circulation, but for presentation, for collectors, for official gift sets. These coins were struck with exceptional care and precision. They were polished and pressed to a mirror finish. They were placed in sealed presentation cases and sold or distributed to collectors around the world. And because they were made in small numbers and kept in special conditions, many of them survived in near-perfect state. Now, here is something very important that you need to understand if you are going to appreciate the true value of what we are discussing today. In the world of coin collecting, condition is everything. A coin that has been circulating in pockets and purses and cash registers for years is worn down. The details become soft. The edges become rounded. The color changes. These coins are common and their value is low. But a coin that was made for collectors, struck with precision, sealed in a case, and preserved in perfect condition, that is a different animal entirely. That is what numismatists call a proof coin or a proof-like coin. And proof coins from limited mintages, proof coins that have specific historical characteristics, proof coins that carry inscriptions that were about to disappear from British coinage forever. Those are the coins that command extraordinary prices. The 1979 British New Pence, 2 pence in proof or near-proof condition, is one of those coins. It represents the final chapter of a specific era in British monetary history. It carries the New Pence inscription that would soon be retired. It was made during a period of intense historical significance for Britain, and it exists in very small numbers in truly high-grade condition. This combination of factors, rarity, history, condition, and the story behind it, is what drives the value up to levels that most people find hard to believe. And then we come to 1980. The 1980 British New Pence, 2 pence, is even more fascinating, and in many ways even more mysterious. By 1980, the Royal Mint had largely moved away from producing the 2 pence coin with the New Pence inscription for general circulation. The standard circulation coins were being updated. But here is the thing that makes this coin so remarkable. Certain 1982 pence coins bearing the New Pence inscription exist, and they exist in proof sets, in collector editions that were carefully produced and distributed. The existence of these coins in this specific year, with this specific inscription, in limited and carefully documented quantities, places them in a category of extraordinary numismatic significance. Think about what it means for a coin to exist in a year when it essentially should not have existed in that form. Think about what it means for a collector to hold a piece of metal that represents a transitional moment in history, a moment when one era was ending and another was beginning. Think about what it means for that coin to be in perfect condition, preserved exactly as it was the day it was struck, carrying every detail sharp and clear, the feathers of the Prince of Wales' crest, the portrait of the young Queen, the lettering clean and precise. That is what the best examples of the 1980 British New Pence, 2 pence represent. That is why serious collectors pursue them. That is why auction results for these coins are the kind of numbers that make headlines. Now, I know what many of you are thinking. You are thinking, these are just 2 pence coins. They must have been made in the millions. How can they be rare? And that is a completely natural reaction, because for most of us, our instinct is that mass-produced coins cannot be truly rare. But this thinking misses something crucial. It is not about how many were made overall. It is about how many survived in the right condition, with the right characteristics, with proper documentation and provenance, in a form that meets the highest standards of serious collectors. When you apply those filters, the number of truly qualifying examples drops dramatically. And when demand from serious collectors is high and supply is extremely low, price goes in only one direction. The value of the 1979 British New Pence, 2 pence in top condition, has been recorded at $82,000. Let that number settle in for a moment. $82,000 for a coin that was originally worth 2 pence. That is the power of rarity. That is the power of history. That is the power of condition and provenance coming together to create something that transcends the original purpose of the object. And the 1980 British New Pence, 2 pence in similar top condition has been valued at $75,500. These are not guesses. These are not inflated fantasies. These are the kinds of numbers that serious numismatic experts, auction professionals, and coin grading services have associated with the finest known examples of these coins. And here is something that I want you to really absorb, because this is the part of the story that is most relevant to you, to the person watching this video right now. These coins were distributed. They went into homes. They went into collector sets that were purchased as gifts, tucked away in drawers, forgotten in attics, passed down through families without anyone knowing what they had. There are people right now, perhaps people you know, perhaps you yourself, you who have one of these coins somewhere and do not know its value. That is not a small thing. That is life-changing money sitting in a forgotten box. Think about the grandmother who collected commemorative coin sets back in the 70s and 80s. Think about the father who used to buy official royal mint presentation sets as Christmas gifts. Think about the uncle who was a casual coin collector and kept his pieces in a tin on a shelf. These are the kinds of people who might have one of these coins. These are the kinds of families where this kind of discovery happens. And it does happen. Across the world of coin collecting, there are stories, real documented stories, of people finding extraordinary value in coins they had ignored for decades. This is why I always say, do not throw away old coins. Do not give them to children to play with. Do not leave them in a jar on the counter without first understanding what you have. Old British coins in particular, coins from the transitional era of the 1970s and early 1980s, deserve a second look. They deserve careful examination. Because the difference between a common coin and a rare coin can be invisible to the untrained eye, but worth tens of thousands of dollars to someone who knows what they are looking at. Now let us talk about what makes a coin like this valuable from a technical standpoint, because I want you to be informed, I want you to be educated, and I want you to understand exactly what experts look for when they evaluate a coin like the 1979 or 1980 British New Pence 2 pence. The first thing experts look at is the strike quality. How sharply were the details pressed into the metal? On the finest examples, every line of the Prince of Wales feathers is crisp and distinct. Every letter is sharp and clean. The portrait of the Queen is detailed and precise. A weak strike, where the metal did not fully fill the die, reduces value significantly. The second thing is surface preservation. Proof and proof-like coins are extremely sensitive to handling. Even a fingerprint can leave marks that reduce a coin's grade. The finest examples have been stored carefully, often in original mint packaging, and show no signs of contact, cleaning, or environmental damage. The surfaces should be mirror-like in the fields, which are the flat background areas, and frosty or satin-like on the raised design elements. This combination is what coin graders call cameo or deep cameo contrast, and it is one of the most desirable characteristics a proof coin can have. The third factor is provenance and documentation. Where did this coin come from? Can its history be traced? Was it part of an original royal mint presentation set? Does it have a certificate or original packaging? Provenance adds authenticity and confidence for buyers, and that confidence translates directly into higher value at auction. The fourth factor that experts consider is the coin's grade, which is the numerical score assigned by professional coin grading services. The most respected grading services in the world, organizations that have been evaluating coins for decades, assign grades on a scale that runs from 1 at the very bottom to 70 at the very top. A coin graded 70 is considered perfect, with no flaws visible even under magnification. Coins graded 65 and above are considered gem quality. And when a coin like the 1979 or 1980 British New Pence 2 pence reaches those upper grades, when it comes back from a professional grading service, sealed in a tamper-evident holder with a high numerical grade, the value climbs dramatically. Collectors and investors know exactly what they are looking at, and they are willing to pay accordingly. There is something deeply human about the way we assign value to rare objects. It is not just about money. It is about connection. It is about holding something in your hand and knowing that very few people in the world have ever held the same thing. It is about touching history. When you hold a 1979 British New Pence 2 pence in proof condition, You are holding something that was created during the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, during a transformative period in British history, during a time when the country was finding its footing in a new economic era. You are holding a piece of metal that carries the image of a monarch who would go on to become the longest reigning British sovereign in history. You are holding something that was made with extraordinary care and precision, something that was meant to last, something that has lasted, and something that tells a story every time you look at it. For collectors who are in the 35 to 65 plus age group, which is a very significant part of the serious numismatic community, coins like these carry an additional layer of meaning. Many of you watching right now were alive in 1979 and 1980. Many of you remember Britain in that era. You remember the news, the culture, the feel of those years. You remember what 2 pence looked like in your hand, what it bought, what it meant in daily life. And now to discover that a version of that same coin, a version that was quietly made and distributed during those years, is worth $82,000 or $75,500. That is not just a financial revelation. That is a deeply personal one. That is history becoming real in a way that numbers on a page cannot fully capture. And for those of you who are older, those of you who lived through the entire transition from the old British currency to the decimal system, those of you who remember what it was like to use shillings and pennies and crowns before 1971, the significance of these coins is even more layered. You lived through the change. You used the new pence coins when they were genuinely new. You were part of that era. And now you are watching these coins become historical artifacts of enormous value. That is a remarkable thing to witness. Let me tell you something about the broader world of British coin collecting, because I want to give you context that helps you understand why these 2 coins stand out even within a field that is full of remarkable and valuable pieces. Britain has been minting coins for over 1,000 years. The Royal Mint is one of the oldest and most respected minting institutions in the entire world. British coins from across the centuries, from the medieval period through the Tudor era, from the Georgian period through the Victorian era and into the modern age, are collected and studied by enthusiasts around the globe. Britain's numismatic heritage is extraordinary, and the coins of the 20th century, including the decimal-era coins of the 1970s and 80s, occupy a very specific and increasingly appreciated place within that heritage. What makes the decimal-era coins particularly interesting to modern collectors is their accessibility combined with their hidden rarity. Unlike ancient coins, which require specialized knowledge just to identify, decimal-era British coins are familiar. People recognize them. They feel connected to them. But within that familiar landscape, there are pockets of extraordinary rarity, moments where the mint made something limited, something transitional, something that captures a specific historical instant and will never be replicated. The 1979 and 1980 British New Pence 2 pence coins are exactly that. They are familiar on the surface and extraordinary underneath. Now I want to speak directly to those of you who might be sitting at home, wondering whether you have something valuable in your possession. Here is what I want you to do. First, do not panic and do not rush. Rushing leads to mistakes. People who rush to sell rare coins often end up selling them to the wrong buyer at the wrong price. Take your time. Second, look carefully. The coins we are discussing today are 2 pence coins from 1979 and 1980 with the inscription New Pence on the reverse side. The reverse side is the back of the coin, the side that does not show the portrait of the Queen. It shows the Prince of Wales' feathers and the denomination, and in these specific coins, the words New Pence rather than just 2 pence. That distinction is critical. Third, examine the condition. If you have a coin that appears to be in exceptional condition, if it has a shiny mirror-like surface and sharp, clear details, if it looks like it was never circulated, never spent, never carried in a pocket or purse, that is a very good sign. If it came from an original presentation set or a sealed mint package, that is even better. Fourth, consider getting it professionally evaluated. There are reputable coin dealers and professional grading services that can assess what you have. A professional evaluation gives you certainty and protects you from making decisions based on incomplete information. The world of coin collecting rewards patience, knowledge, and care, and it especially rewards the people who take the time to look closely at what they already have before dismissing it as worthless. The most extraordinary discoveries in numismatics have not always happened in grand auction houses or at major coin fairs. Some of the most remarkable finds have happened in ordinary homes, in the kind of homes that many of you watching right now live in, when someone decided to look carefully at a box of old coins that had been sitting untouched for years. There is a reason why Expensive Coins History Channel exists. There is a reason why we come back every week to talk about coins like these, to dig into their history, to explain their value, to help you understand what you might be holding. It is because this kind of knowledge matters. It is because the difference between knowing and not knowing can be the difference between discarding something priceless and recognizing it for what it truly is. Information is the most valuable thing we share on this channel, and we share it because we believe that everyone deserves to know the true story of the objects that history has placed in their hands. Let us talk about the auction world for a moment, because this is where the values we have discussed today become concrete and real. When a rare coin like the 1979 or 1980 British New Pence, 2 pence, reaches a major auction, something remarkable happens. Collectors and investors from around the world compete for it. Bidding can be intense, driven by the passion and knowledge of people who have spent years, sometimes decades, searching for a specific piece to complete a collection or to add to an investment portfolio. The prices that emerge from these auctions are not random. They reflect real demand, real scarcity, and real historical significance. Coin auctions have produced some of the most staggering results in the history of collectibles. Rare coins have sold for millions of dollars. Even coins from the modern era, coins from the 20th century, have sold for prices that rival fine art and rare gemstones. The numismatic market is deep, well-established, and supported by a global community of passionate collectors who understand value in a way that most people do not. And within that market, coins like the ones we have discussed today occupy a real and documented position of extraordinary worth. For those of you in the 35 and older age group, for those of you who have lived through enough of life to understand that value is not always obvious and that the most important things are often the ones we overlook. This story carries a particular resonance. You have seen enough of the world to know that unexpected fortune comes in unexpected forms. You have seen enough of life to know that what looks ordinary on the surface can sometimes be anything but. That wisdom is exactly what the world of rare coin collecting rewards. It rewards the people who look twice. It rewards the people who ask questions. It rewards the people who take the time to understand before they act. And for those of you who are 65 and older, for those of you who grew up in an era when saving and collecting and preserving were values you lived by, for those of you who kept things because you understood that value does not disappear just because something is old, the world of coin collecting is a validation of everything you were taught. The coins you saved, the sets you kept, the pieces you preserved through decades of change and uncertainty, those are not just nostalgic objects. They are potentially extraordinary assets. They deserve your attention, and they deserve proper evaluation. We say it every time on Expensive Coins History Channel, and we mean it every time. Do not underestimate what you have. Do not assume that because something is old and small and seemingly ordinary, it has no value. The 1979 British New Pence, 2 pence valued at $82,000, was once just a 2 pence coin. The 1980 British New Pence, 2 pence valued at $75,500, was once just a 2 pence coin. Someone made them. Someone distributed them. Someone kept them. And somewhere out there, someone is going to find one and discover that history placed a fortune in their hands without ever announcing it. That is the magic of rare coins. That is the power of numismatic history. That is why we do what we do on this channel every single week, because the next discovery could belong to you. The next life-changing find could be in a box in your attic, in a drawer in your spare room, in a collection that was handed down to you by a parent or grandparent who understood the value of keeping things that others threw away. Before we close today, I want to remind you of something. I said it at the beginning and I want to say it again at the end. Watch videos like this one all the way through, because the information we share could genuinely change your life. That is not an exaggeration. That is not a marketing phrase. That is the honest truth, proven by the real and documented values of coins like the ones we have discussed today. When 2 small copper coins from 1979 and 1980 are worth $82,000 and $75,500 respectively, the information that helps you identify and understand them is worth every second of your time. If you found this video valuable, please share it with someone you know who collects old coins, or someone who has a box of old things stored away at home. Share it with your family. Share it with a friend. Because this kind of information belongs to everyone, and the more people know it, the more incredible discoveries become possible. Thank you for being here on Expensive Coins History Channel. We will see you in the next video with another story of hidden value, forgotten history, and the extraordinary fortunes that have been waiting quietly for someone to look closely enough to find them.